The Department of Correction is preparing for an important operation that occurs each October in Tennessee. Operation Blackout is a statewide effort to provide effective community supervision of sex offenders during the Halloween and fall festival season. During this time, our probation and parole officers will be out in neighborhoods across the state, ensuring that sex offenders who are under our supervision are in compliance with the rules that have been established for them. So joining us today to talk more about Operation Blackout, we have probation and parole professionals from each region of the state who will be talking about their work and offering some advice for parents on staying safe this Halloween season. So first, we want to start with our correctional administrator, Sue Siedentop, to give us an overview, Sue, of exactly what Operation Blackout is all about.
Yes, so Operation Blackout is a specific designated operation that targets our registered sex offender population that are supervised by our department. This year, we will have about 3,800 offenders participating in the operation. TDOC supervises about 3,800 of the 23,000 registered sex offenders in Tennessee. And so one of the things that we do is we go to every person's home. We do a complete search of their home during the 10 days leading up to Halloween. During this time, they are under restrictions where they cannot go to any fall festival event that might be occurring in the community, whether that's a corn maze or haunted house or some other activity that the community may be hosting. They cannot have any kind of a Halloween party or attend a Halloween party because they are not allowed to dress up in any costume. They are not allowed to go trick-or-treating with any child at all during this period. And they have a curfew from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. each day, the 10 days leading up to Halloween and on Halloween night. And so during that time, we just go to their home and we search their homes and we ensure that they are completely under compliance with the rules of our supervision and the rules of the sex offender registry.
So Manager Mann, I want to ask you, when you go to an offender's home, what exactly are you looking for? Or can you talk a little bit about what that search is aimed at?
When we go to an offender's home, we are looking for any violations of TDOC rules, any violations of our special conditions. If they cannot have if they have minor victims and can't have contacts with minors, then we're looking to see if there are any children there, any toys there. If some of them may be restricted from alcohol based on their risk assessment, so we're looking for that. We are looking for anything illegal, any weapons, any drugs, just any violations of Tennessee probation and parole rules and Tennessee state laws.
And Officer Tankersley, can you tell us what happens when an offender is found not to be in compliance with those rules?
It depends on what the violation is. If it is a criminal violation, then we would call the police department or the sheriff's office to come in and investigate that. If it's a violation of the supervision rules, then there can be sanctions, including increased reporting, increased drug testing. We have the offender come into the office so we can deal with that violation immediately.
Okay, and can anyone answer how often in the years since we've been doing Operation Blackout, how often do you find that someone is not in compliance? Is that unusual, or do you typically, even though they know you're coming, typically find that some offenders are not obeying the rules, or are most following the rules? Anybody want to answer that one?
I can answer that. Been tracking the data for the last several years, and we are about 85 to 90% compliance with our offenders with their rules. And so, you know, there are those offenders that are not always compliant, and despite really knowing that we're coming, we do find violations of their supervision. But our offenders, over the most part, are very compliant with their supervision, and we have a high compliance rate during these operations.
So tell us how supervision has looked a little differently this year with the restrictions of COVID.
Well, I know, amid COVID-19, a lot of our communication has gone virtual like anywhere else. That still applies to us supervising our offenders. We can do things as far as virtual home visits, virtual in-face reporting. However, the most important piece of supervision for us, the sex offender treatment, are still in person. And in some cases, their residence verifications are still in person as well.
And I know, Officer Holzmer, this is your first year participating in Operation Blackout. Can you talk a little bit about how you've prepared for this big event, or what you're anticipating being out there for the first time?
It is definitely a different look supervising these offenders and knowing what to look for each and every case. I don't think we're going to find stuff that's going to be outlandish because we're talking with them, weekly, daily, and figuring out what we need to. But it's going to be an operation that takes time, takes effort from the department.
And Officer Warfield, can you talk a little bit about just some advice you all want to give to parents as we're, preparing to take our children out for Halloween, not just this year, but every year? Anything you want parents to keep in mind?
Well, one of the things that parents should keep in mind is to be involved in their children's life, to talk about safeguards and talk about their relationships with others, and to get to know the people in their children's life, and also to know that a lot of those that are victims are those that know, rather the offender is typically someone who knows the victim, is close to the victim, maybe a family member or a friend.
What are some of the sex offender registry rules that offenders have to comply with?
Well, sex offenders on the registry have specific statutory restrictions that include them not being able to reside within 1,000 feet of a school, park, or daycare or public athletic field. And also, the Tennessee Department of Correction does have a housing coordinator that helps to assist offenders with finding appropriate places for them to live in the community.
Okay, to that point, if we can, Officer Jones, you want to expound on that while we're preparing for Operation Blackout, where children may be going to the homes of strangers, we also want to let parents know that in many cases there is a risk from people that they know, people within their own circle.
Teach your children about boundaries and encourage children to speak up. Know where they're going, watch where they're going, be vigilant around them, that type of thing. And if you're concerned about your child or suspect abuse, contact your local law enforcement, your child advocacy center or sexual assault centers. Parents can find more information by going to www.rain, and that's with 2 N's, RAINN.org. To report any type of rape, abuse, incest, look at the national networks in order to get help. And again, most victims know and trust the person who sexually abused them. The most recent statistic in Tennessee shows that from January to June of 2020, that 50% of our children assisted by their local child advocacy center were abused by family member or other trusted adult. So it is very important that we know who is in our kids' life, who we are allowed to come live with us or spend time with us.
And Sue, why the extra focus this year on letting parents know about the threat to their children from, someone they may have met before, someone they know? Why are you focusing on that more this year?
Well, I think that there's always this concern by the public of offenders that come on the sex offender registry and looking to see who lives in their neighborhood. And that is all very, very important. You do need to know, the people who live in your neighborhood. When you're going out trick-or-treating this year, make sure to skip any of the houses where you think, there's a register, you're aware that there's a registered sex offender that lives there. But I think that the big focus needs to be on that we've learned over the years when we've looked back at the data of who does offend against children and recognize that the majority of children who are victimized by somebody they know. It's somebody that's already known to the family and not necessarily somebody who lives in their neighborhood. So it could be somebody that's already within the family, or somebody that is in the close circle of friends or acquaintances of the family. And so we just want to make sure that parents are getting accurate information about who they need to be watching for with their children. And Officer Jones did a real good job of talking about all of the risks and the different things that you can look for in your child. And I think it's just really important for parents to engage with their children, ask them about their day, talk about who they've talked to. And I have 4 kids, so I understand you ask your child, how was school today? And they just say fine. And so you might need to ask more questions and ask, what was your favorite part of the day? Or who did you sit with at lunch? Who did you sit with on the school bus? Those kind of questions to just engage your child. And if you see a change in their behavior, then you might need to dig a little deeper to see, what is causing that or what is going on. And we just wanted to make sure, the Department of Correction, we are very focused on public safety. And we just wanted to provide parents with all of the information that they need to keep their children safe.
And Jessica, I want you to talk a little bit about why you do this type of work, like the type of offenders that you all supervise, and to spend your time making sure that children in Tennessee are safe. This has to be a fairly difficult job, but how do you all handle this type of work, I guess?
That's a really good question. So as far as why, I think that each of us can say that we are committed to public safety and to ensuring that we're able to work with these offenders, because it does take a special type of person who's able to hear the facts of cases, to work with these offenders. And each of us are committed to diligently learning about each of the individual cases, each of the individual offenders, and also taking opportunities like CA Seedentop was just talking about spreading community awareness and partnering with community agencies, just so we can continue to ensure public safety. And TDOC works well with us to ensure that we are doing self-care and have the tools that we need to be able to accomplish the required tasks of this.
Tankersley, if you can talk about that also, why do you enjoy, or why are you committed to this type of work?
It's not just the children of our community, it's the adults as well, because not all of our offenders committed their crimes against children. So it's across the board public safety that I'm interested in. It's a big task to watch these offenders, to make sure that they're in compliance with their conditions, that they're doing everything that the parole board or the judge has ordered them to do, and making sure that they get the treatment that they need to get. This is a job like any other. You never know what's going to come from one day to the next. It's always something different. And you have to put aside sometimes what the offenders did to get in trouble in the first place, and focus on, what are you going to do right now? What are you going to do from this day forward? Are you going to be in compliance so that everyone is safe? Or if you're not going to be in compliance, we can get you back in front of the judge or the parole board, and the community will be safe.
This is one of the most important jobs or things that the Department of Correction does to help keep Tennesseans safe. Would you say, Manager Mann, would you say that it is critical to our everyday lives?
Yes, most definitely. I do think it is critical to our everyday lives. Just like everyone has said, it's the key part of our mission is public safety. And it's why we do what we do, just making sure that the communities that we all live in are safe.
And we need to talk about this year's Operation Blackout is occurring in an unusual time, much differently than the operations that we've had before with COVID-19. What are you all doing to ensure not only your own safety as you go out and visit sex offenders, but also those that you're supervising fellow officers? How are you staying safe, Sue, during COVID-19?
Well, the department established very specific protocols for us to keep us safe, to keep the public safe. We're going to use proper PPE. So we'll be double masked. We'll have double gloves. We're going to have outerwear that covers our uniform for when we go inside the house to keep us safe. We've got sanitation protocols on, wiping everything down in between homes. We're going to ensure to socially distance. And, we're just going to do everything we can to ensure that we are checking on the offenders and still keeping us safe, the family, the offender safe, and their family.
Okay, so finally, any advice from anyone to the public just as we prepare to take our kids out? Would you all suggest that we go door to door this year? I know a lot of cities are still trying to determine that, but if we can't take the kids door to door, do you all have any advice on how we can still have a good, fun, safe time this Halloween season? Anybody?
I think there are a lot of churches in the area and community organizations that are recognizing that this is a completely different time that we are going to be trick-or-treating. There's lots of trunk or treats and community events that the children can go to, and that I think that you can do research to see if there are any that are looking at CDC guidelines. But trunk or treats and community events, those are probably more safe, and then also could be indoors or could accommodate several factors that you would need to keep in mind this year or any year.
Okay, thank you. One final question. Sue, you may want to let us know, when will you all actually be out starting for the official start of this operation?
Begins at 6 a.m. on October 21st.
All right. Thank you all so much. Thank each of you for the work that you do every day to keep us safe and to help the department achieve its mission of providing effective community supervision and enhancing public safety. You all be safe, and we'll be looking for you out there. Thank you.